Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. So we are toward the end of the year. I know you're a little bit angry with the latest news just because Italy apparently on paper didn't happen to meet the 1 billion hope that we had in the past months. So as you were mentioning, we were hitting about more than 900 million. 920 million. Yeah. And so that's the closing of the year. I mean, for the listener, we hoped for the billion, but as you say, and I'll let you go off on your rant about this part. So please.
Well, first of all, the 1 billion threshold is still far away according to my tracker. Remember, I am a bit strict about what I put into the tracker. It's only equity, as far as I know, of course, and only Italian companies. And only public rounds. I mean, I have news about other stuff, but I can't add them to the tracker. And yet I'm sad because the biggest round of the week, and probably one of the best in Italy for this year, was as an undisclosed amount, so we don't know the number. And I think it would bring quite close to the 1 billion threshold. So I'm really sad, but still happy because the round happened. So, I mean, that's good news.
Awesome. So let's talk about this round. So Unobravo, mental health and well-being startup raising undisclosed growth round from Northzone with participation on H14. CDP, very interesting also element, sold its stake. Basically, they invested in 2020 in the seed round, and now they're pretty much out. So let's talk really quick about Unobravo. So Unobravo is providing online psychological support services, focusing on depression, anxiety, and relationship. They have about 160,000 patients on the platform and about 5,000 vetted therapists. And of course, the mission here is to destigmatize therapy in general, and of course, using a tech-powered approach to mental health in general. So thinking about the product, I think what is very interesting is we were talking, the kind of the stellar execution of something that maybe it was a good moment to focus on. The other element which really caught my eye was the vetting mechanism. So essentially, they're really focusing on putting on the platform very skilled professionals, and that's pretty much also one big element of how exactly the platform can rate so high in recommendations, in reviews, and etc. So that's all of these, and not only these things, made it extremely popular. So Nick, I know you're also impressed, so let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, the execution is stellar, as you said. The CDP invested at the seed stage in 2020, just 3 years ago. And between then and now, the startup went out raising capital from international funds, and now a real growth round from Northzone. That's quite impressive considering that the market is pretty much Italian, I would say, so far. Because of obvious reasons, the language, the network externalities, by focusing on one country. I mean, I expect them to grow outside of Italy at this point, but it was a pretty much Italian play up to now. So this is very interesting. That means that the team at Northzone and the investors saw a pretty deep market and the opportunity to grow quite far and beyond the Italian borders. One and two. The other interesting thing is about the CDP arc in this story. They sustained they invested in the startup in 2020 at the seed stage, a small ticket, and they exited the company at the growth stage. And that's probably the original idea of CDP investing in seed stage startups. Support that phase and exit the company when the company grows and becomes a real scale up, a real structural company. So there isn't a strictly speaking, a return goal, a full monetization goal. Otherwise, they would probably have stayed on board. But we've done our work, our job. We can leave, we can exit, and move on with our other activities. So I think that's interesting, and that's probably the purest form of support a CDP should give to the ecosystem. So I think that's a very nice play.
That's a good insight. That's a good insight, and I totally agree. Like that's probably like how exactly the purest form of CDP collaboration will work. I mean, to my knowledge, that's probably the most well-known. I mean, the most publicized exit from CDP. I don't know if before we saw something maybe less popularized, but this one kind of was really the one that was pushed out in the press. So I thought it was, yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, well, of course, it's important for them to tell the story, because I mean,
Yeah,
within
finally
the time,
something
yeah,
closing
I mean,
of the circle.
we attracted international investors. The company grew a lot. We did our job. Hey, but I mean, apart from that, they've had some exits as well, also good exits, but they haven't pushed so much in communication about them. So I mean, again, because the point is not about returns, it's about supporting the ecosystem. So they're doing their duty. But in this case, I think it was good for them to really tell the story, because it's clear in this way.
Awesome. That's a good insight. Going back to the investor, I thought we should spend like a few minutes about Northzone and Insight Partner, the other lead investor actually. So Northzone it basically works with 10 multi-stage funds. They've been funded like back in the 90s. 280 Investment is a company based in London, and it's basically they've been like starting from smaller funds up to multiple hundreds of million funds. So very great player, very well established in the European ecosystem. So checking the press release, I think it was curious to see what exactly convinced them to invest in Unobravo, which kind of reflect what we were mentioning, which essentially is three things. I mean, well, three KPIs that really, got them like convinced, which is the highest net promoter score, highest retention, and highest referral in basically in the latest deals that they've seen. So by these metrics, that's really apparently, according to the press, what convinced them. So the net promoter score was something that was popularized back in the days, basically referring to what is the likelihood of people referring your product to other people, and that's through surveys and everything. Kind of a soft KPI, I would say, to a certain extent. But yeah, it's still rocking and still rolling. That's interesting.
Yeah, if you use it right, I mean, it's a good indicator. I think the problem lately was that it looks easy to use, but it's not obvious to use. So if you misuse it, it will quickly tell the wrong story, and whatever. Yeah. Then whatever. But very nice that they compared that metric, and it was so high. So
yeah.
Wow,
that's super cool. The other investor, Insight Partners, just a few information, based in New York, essentially. They definitely work with both VC deals and PE deals. So very interesting as the company grows to actually have some private equity. It does like also VC and vice versa, just to see exactly how the possibilities can happen given this kind of situation. They've been known for being into like very interesting deals, such as Monday.com, for example, and Calm, and they're software focused. So definitely have like a very interesting firm that can really push the growth of the company. So
let me add a bit about Insight Partners, because I mean they are probably I can easily say tier one investor worldwide. And are probably the most active tier one investor in Italy, because they made at least 2 deals, probably 3 out of memory in Italy in recent years.
Interesting.
And well, that's interesting. I mean, I think we're not considering that enough. They're probably the real first mover in Italy.
Wow, interesting. Very cool. Yeah. So more and more foreign people populating the ecosystem, and yeah, talking about foreign investor, let's talk about smart pricing. So pricing is a revenue management software for hotels, leveraging machine learning. Raised 11 million in equity and 2 million in credit lines, in a round led by Partech. So Partech is a firm based pretty much in Paris, well, started in Paris and then expanded a little bit worldwide. This is interesting because they recently opened a European office called Partech Venture, which actually is a fund by all means. And what is interesting is that this Partech Ventures arm is invested by CDP in the form of International Funds of Funds program. So a few elements here, I would say. So okay, let's go back. I mean, there are a few things. First of all, the credit line part, which we know, venture debt is there to stay and more and getting popularity. Number one. Number two, the fact that bigger funds are having like antennas in Italy, or at least like a foothold in the Italian ecosystem, which is great. And thirdly, the CDP intervention as a fund of fund into foreign funds. So that's something. So there is a lot to process.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree with you. Let's start from the end, because the end is probably one of the smartest moves I think they made recently. I mean, they made a lot of stuff. I mean CDP, but the latest one is pretty cool. The basic idea is we need international investors in Italy. How do you attract international investors? Well, by giving them money to manage.
100%. Awesome.
And that's absolutely right. So you want smart people investing in Italy. You give them some money. You ask them to bring more, and you make them invest in Italy. And this is the starting point. So Partech is the first fund that was announced. I believe there will be another 3 to 4 at least that will be launched in the next months. This is just intuition. I don't have any inside information. But, so this is a very smart move, because that means having Series A, Series B investors attracted to Italy and they deploy capital. And that's exactly what's missing now in the ecosystem. So I love this move.
I agree. We need more of that. Like the co-investment part is powerful. It's definitely powerful. I don't know if that's the first instance of this strategy disclosed by CDP Funds of Funds, because we've seen Funds of Funds moving, but I'm not sure if specifically on foreign funds investing in Italy. But yeah, I agree with you. That's something to monitor. That's definitely
I don't know, kind of, but not as a strategy. Maybe opportunistically. Probably moving, for example, Sofinnova, to name one. But not as a strategy. Maybe Sofinnova opening up a fund for Italy and going to CDP, talking to them to raise capital. That's absolutely normal. This is different. This is about taking an existing fund, investing in the fund, and pushing the fund into investing in Italy, part of the capital plus additional capital that's coming in from the outside. And this is deliberate. This is a strategy. They have a page on the website of this strategy. So
interesting.
It's pretty much there.
So the other elements which caught my attention, but again, I think it's a little fun thing to think about, is they should go after like older funds, more established funds, and do this strategy, because Partech was basically funded in the 80s. And, is there a pattern here? Because we've seen as Northzone before and Insight Partners, so big funds from Europe being funded back in the 90s. Now they are at fund like 10, 11, etc. And now they're really even expanding even more in other locations. So maybe that's the right balance, finding a well-established older fund, and then at the same time finding a co-investment strategy with them, and that's how exactly you trigger new players into the market.
I think that's fair. That's a good consideration. I mean, proposing an older fund with higher knowledge, more experience on the market, to look for alpha in new economies, in new areas. and supporting the fund into entering the ecosystem. I think it's a very good idea. Let's see whether it works, but
Yep.
I'm really looking forward to see the entire deployment of the strategy.
Awesome. All right, let's close down with two very interesting news. CAEmate, Alto Adige and Südtirol-based digital twin startup has secured $3 million in a post-seed funding round, led by CDP Venture Capital and 360 Capital, with contributions from some private investors. Let's talk about the product. I think the product is something that really is worth considering, which is very interesting and powerful. So essentially, CAEmate has been developing a technology where essentially they build digital twins of infrastructures, and then they use a predictive algorithm to actually understand what kind of structural maintenance or probability of failure the real assets are facing. So it's a kind of a groundbreaking application into how exactly infrastructure is managed, and basically mixing it with machine learning, digital twins, and everything that a few years ago where it was just the digital twin part was mostly marketing application and not really connected with the real objects in such a powerful way. I mean, apologies for the people working on digital twin, but I think this one is really different from what has been the latest application.
Yeah, this is well. I mean, I think there is an important point here. From a center point of view, digital twins. If you want to make a digital twin of, I don't know, a machine, industrial machine, or this bottle or whatever. I mean, they're helpful. But in this case, we're talking about digital twins of critical infrastructure, meaning there are lives at stake. So if anything goes wrong, it goes wrong quite a lot. So in this case, we're probably operating at a different level of importance, relevance, and risk about the twins being made and analyzed. So I expect that the technology there is, as you said, much deeper, much more complex, much more complete than most of the digital twins that we've seen so far. Which, I mean, they work. They do great things, but
awesome. So now let's end this episode with actually, Italian investor investing abroad with the Freya Bioscience. So Indaco Venture Partner and Angelini, the CVC arm of Angelini, or the big pharma company, joined a 38 million investment in Freya Bioscience, clinical stage biotech company specializing in women's reproductive immunotherapy. That's interesting also because we have seen this past year like a few investments being made by Italian funds in sort of the neighboring space, so in Europe in particular. What is also interesting is that we are seeing the presence of the CVC arms of different big corporation to actually joining this kind of round on the side of well-established venture firms. So that's interesting in multiple levels.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. If I may, Jack, to conclude the episode, a big shout. I would like to give a big shout out to Augusto Marietti and the guys at Kong for reaching 100 million annual recurring revenues with the startup. They have a great story. Probably great to have them tell the story again, but to us on this podcast. Because they literally started from nothing, having nothing, and building a huge company in Silicon Valley. So shout out to them. Good work.
Awesome catch, Nick. Yeah, thank you. All right, so I think that this might be the last episode of this year, unless anything groundbreaking happens. So we will see. Thank you so much, Nick, for joining, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Ciao, Jack. Thank you very much. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody, unless something exciting happens.